my big three, I am a Libra sun, Aries moon, Gemini rising. And I feel like that is a very polarizing combination of signs. I feel like when I say that, everyone has like instant thoughts of like, oh, that's interesting. Very chaotic, very fun, super charismatic, amazing, wonderful, and of course, very humble also.
Have you ever wanted to know what happens behind the screen of an influencer? Welcome to Inside the Influence, a podcast brought to you by Microspire. I'm your host, Faye, and I'm going to get the down and dirty on what it takes to be an influencer. Please be sure to follow us on social media and sign up for Microspire at the link in the show notes to create your own free account and start connecting with other micro-influencers today. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to our second episode of Inside the Influence, where I, your host, Faye, head of Microspire, interview different influencers with different niches and hopefully give you little tips and tricks to jumpstart your influencing journey. Today, I am joined by the lovely Myah. She is a huge hit on TikTok, and she is big into the astrology scene.
Hi, I'm Myah, based in Chicago, best city in the world. You may also know me at ARESMONTGOMERY on TikTok. And like they said, astrology is my thing. I'm your favorite astro girl. So yeah, hi everyone.
Do you consider yourself an influencer?
Yes and no. Like, yes, in the sense that I feel like within my niche, I have started a couple of trends that have caught on amongst the community. But as far as like the audience, I don't really think so. I think like digital creator is like a better fit for me.
I totally get that, like where it's like, oh, I feel like I can influence like a certain group of people, you know, like with me and my roller skating, like it's definitely like if I'm like, hey, check out these roller skates, it's not all of my followers who are like, oh, I need to buy those skates. It's like a couple few that are like, oh my gosh, you're right, I need new skates. What is the primary social media that you use and that you post on that you feel like you get the most engagement?
I really only focus on TikTok as of now, but I do want to expand to Instagram and YouTube, which are definitely much harder to break into compared to TikTok, but I just want to expand across as many platforms as I can.
So when did you start on TikTok and what was your journey there?
I started on TikTok in September of 2019, completely by accident. Like, I had no intentions on like blowing up and becoming a massive creator or anything. I was just bored. Should have been doing my homework instead. And I was like, I think this is funny, so I'm going to post it. And then it blew up overnight, and I just wasn't expecting that. But I was like, okay, let me keep going. So then I just continued. And at the time, I felt like it was just a completely different space than it is now. And I was just having a lot of fun. And that's what kept me going. I didn't necessarily care about the views or anything. I just was having a good time. And it seemed like other people who were watching were also having a good time with me. So that's what kept me continuing on. I feel like it was really quick into my journey that I like noticed I had an audience, so to speak. I think I hit 50,000 followers around like 3 months after I had started. So it was just like super quick to kind of go from zero to that.
You were one of the first people that I knew, like, you know, in my circle that I definitely noticed, oh my gosh, you're blowing up on social media and stuff. Like, that was so cool to watch, like, your journey. And so I know that you really focus on astrology, but I also, from our background, a background for the audience, Myah and I met in college. And like my first introduction, not my first introduction, but one of my real deep dives into it was one day in rehearsal, because I was a director, Myah was an actor. Myah sat down and decided her chart for her character. And she kind of deep dived into all of the people in the room's personal charts. And that gave me like such a good clarity on like what all of my signs meant, et cetera, et cetera. But I would love to hear from you, like where you got your start in astrology, and then also how you decided to start posting about it.
My journey with astrology goes all the way back to my high school days. I was writing a book and I was trying to figure out a better way to develop my characters and make them more fleshed out. So I was on writing Tumblr and all sorts of blogs trying to find different questionnaires of things to ask my characters. And then of course they had a birthday, but from there that search led me to find out what birth charts were. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then from there, that's what started all of this madness where astrology has become my whole life. I did a lot of deep dives, practicing on myself, practicing on my friends, and literally anyone who was interested in hearing me talk about it. I feel like what made me start posting about it was because it was something that I always wanted to talk about. And I felt like whatever audience that I guess, encounter with my posting about it will be actually interested, maybe more so than the people in my actual life. Not to say that I didn't have people who were interested in my life with me with astrology, but I wanted to maybe give them a break from me talking about it, even though I don't really think that actually happened.
So with that online community that you found, did you find they were more receptive to certain types of content with astrology in terms of like some people just talk about like the big three, sun, moon, and rising, or did you find they wanted to engage with things deeper?
I feel like it was a mix of both. Personally, when I started, I really leaned into the humor of it all and going in with those jokes that you would really only know if you know astrology. So I really didn't have that much of an educational lean. And as I've continued to create astrology content, I realized I actually don't want to do that at all.
Where do you find the inspiration for your content? Do you find yourself hopping on trends? Do you come up with trends that sometimes then other people hop on? Like, what is your creative process?
I definitely pay attention to the trends, like the trending concepts and trending sounds, to see if I can weave astrology into it in a way that makes sense to me. And then I also find myself sometimes coming up with trends, but typically it's just like, if it happens, it happens. I don't really go out of my way to ideate ideas like that. And maybe I probably should. That may help out more with consistency. It's just kind of like whatever comes to me, I just act on it in that moment. If it blows up, it blows up. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's fine.
What number of followers did you get to before you were like, oh my gosh, I have a platform. People want to hear from me. I'm an influencer.
I feel like the first big milestone was probably that 50,000. And then somewhere around 75 to 80,000, I was like, oh, I guess I'm a creator and I have people who want to listen to me and like my content, especially when there was this one point where there was talks about oh, TikTok's about to shut down. And there was this huge influx of every single big creator being follow me on Instagram, follow me on YouTube, follow me, da da da. So at that point, yeah, it was around the 75,000, 80,000 mark. I was like, oh, maybe if I do want to transfer my audience across other platforms, maybe they will follow me. I don't know.
Do you ever notice a lull in your engagement? And do you ever worry about that? Do you ever try to do something else on your page to get engagement back up?
I've definitely had those moments where I've been hyper fixated on numbers. And there's been a couple of, I guess I'll say, dry seasons over the course of just creating on TikTok, especially as the algorithms change and people's interests change, what the trends are changes. Those transitional moments sometimes have lower engagement for me. But what I've done through those is just to continue creating, even though the numbers are low and may seem discouraging. And I'm just oh my gosh, am I losing it? No, I'm not. They'll come when they'll come. And it ebbs and flows. So I realized that's just a part of the journey. And also, especially when I have my moments where I'm really into content creation and I'm doing something every single day for it, that's definitely different than when I have my off seasons where I'm just I don't feel like it, so I'm not going to, and that's fine.
Speaking of off seasons or on seasons, do you create content full time? Do you do it as a side hustle?
And by day, I would consider myself a project manager, evening actor, and then any other time that can fit into that, I do content creation when I feel like it. I feel like people can definitely tell I have some type of theatrical training in my content. I've heard that before. People will be like, oh, I can definitely see that you have an acting background. I also haven't really applied the principles of project management into my content creation life, which I probably should, because that might make me more organized.
For a while there, you had your own makeup line, and then you announced, I think, earlier this year that you were taking, your step back from it and you were focusing on other passions. Can you talk a little bit about what got you into that makeup line? Because it was all astrology focused, and I know I loved all your products. And then also what your journey was stepping away from it.
In the summer of 2020, I started my cosmetics line called Venusian Glow, which, as I said, was all astrology themed products. I launched with 13 lip glosses, each named after the signs, plus a clear one. And eventually I expanded to lip scrubs, body butters, other lip products, and an eyeshadow palette. What got me started was, of course, it was right at the start of the pandemic and everyone was at home. I don't know, I was bored on YouTube, and then what came up in my recommended was how to start a lip gloss business. And I was like, okay, I've never searched for anything like that before, but I was like, let me just watch it. And the process of actually making your own homemade lip gloss was pretty easy. And at the time, I think I was like 85,000 to 87,000, something like that on TikTok. I was like, I literally already have my own audience. I don't have to go through any other creators with similar size followings. I can just promote it myself. So I literally spent that whole summer learning how to make everything and getting my business started. Just was so wonderful to not only get all of the support from people in my real life like Faye, also having people who were in completely different parts of the world support me. The first time I got an international order was someone who purchased my products and they were in Italy, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. From there, I just ended up realizing that with all the other things that was going on in my life, like finishing college and getting into the workforce, trying to figure out my acting career, there was just other things that took more priority, which led me to stepping away. But I definitely learned a lot, and I won't say that it'll be the only time I ever have a beauty endeavor like Venusian Glow, but she had her run, and I'm still very proud of everything that I was accomplishing with it.
I'll say I was so proud of you during that was so awesome to see you thrive with that. And that's really good to know that when you start your own company and you already have a following base, that they're going to start supporting you. And you do get those international orders. That's crazy. I had no idea you had people in Italy and other countries that were like, I need this product, that's so cool.
It was so weird. I was like, oh my, wow. That this product exists, and then you're also buying it. I don't know. That was just that was so cool.
What opportunities besides promoting your own cosmetics line have you had because of social media?
I would say I owe my corporate career to my TikTok page. At one point, I was double majoring with acting and marketing, and I did have plans to pursue marketing as some sort of day job. I didn't know exactly what type of marketing I wanted to do or where in the marketing industry I wanted to fall, but I knew that when it came to how am I going to actually sustain myself, I knew that I had to look other places besides acting. Once the pandemic started, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to successfully graduate if I'm still double majoring. So I dropped marketing as a major and looked to take courses and find internships that would allow me to actually hone my skill set there. But of course, one of the biggest things that I could speak to was, I was able to grow this massive following on one of the newest social media platforms successfully and quickly. And that's what led me to get every internship I've had. That's what led me to be a part of the fellowship that got me my full-time job. And I still feel like my experience in social that way has given me a really interesting background that I feel like other people don't have in the same way that I do.
Where it's there's definitely a different sort of wavelength that you come on and connect with. So I definitely feel you on that. And that's awesome that your social media brought you all of those opportunities and you were able to, throw that on your resume. That's so great. What are your favorite experiences or facets or interactions that you've had on TikTok?
I really cherish all of the online friends that I've made in the astrology community on TikTok. Some of my closest online friends have come because of that and that common interest. So it's just always nice that even outside of posting about astrology, that I've been able to foster connections with people in that way. And I've also just really enjoyed all of the positive comments that I've gotten. It's just so like cool to see support like that. And I really enjoy and just like am so grateful for it.
Are there any downsides of being so much in the public eye, being boosted into people's For You pages?
Of course, there's always the losers who say mean things. And I've had to learn that I don't have to give every mean thing attention. I think that sometimes I may have taken that opportunity to be mean back, but then I realized that that doesn't do anything. Yeah, it's like there's no reason to put my energy into that, especially when I can focus on all of the love and support that I do get instead of harping on this one goofy person who wants to talk at me sideways on the internet. I'm just like, you literally, first of all, would never say that to my face. You would never have the opportunity to get that out of your system to anyone in person either. So it's just I don't need to dwell on that.
Just kind of ignore it and focus your energy into the love and positivity.
I think earlier when I was on TikTok, I definitely took every opportunity to clap back at anyone who was talking to me crazy. As I've gotten more into it, I'm just I could ignore this, or I could even say something nice in response. And now you look really dumb because you're being mean to someone and I'm being nice to you. So I win regardless.
Kill them with kindness. What are your future goals with your social media career? What do you have planned for the future?
I am super excited to expand outside of astrology a little bit and try my hand at lifestyle content. I don't want to isolate the audience that I've been able to build and the community that I have on the astrology side. So I'm definitely going to continue that and keep that separate from the lifestyle niche that I want to try out. But I'm also looking forward to just being more creative again on TikTok with the astrology niche. I feel like the community over time has just gotten so boring and just so strict. And I'm just literally when I came on TikTok, it was still cringy to be on it for one. It was more of an opportunity to be unhinged and maybe lean into that pop astrology, talking about stereotypes and those jokes type of things. And ever since, I feel like the community has grown and become more educational focused, which isn't a bad thing because I definitely think that the information that you can learn of what astrology actually is will lean into people being more accepting of it. But at the same time, just okay, y'all are taking all the fun out of literally everything. And I just hope to bring that back and make people laugh.
It's the common Twitter meme that's out there that's oh, I like waffles. And somebody will respond, oh my God, so you hate pancakes? Mm-hmm. And it's it wasn't ever that deep. We were just trying to say something, maybe have some fun with it. Because I definitely feel like social media needs a way more of that rather than so much serious, anything you say is the golden standard and I need to take what you say at complete face value kind of things. Do you have any advice for somebody who wants to become way more active on social media and grow their following?
Focus on the content that makes you excited to make it. The more that you try to force yourself into these boxes of specific aesthetics or trying to fit into this lane that other creators have built for themselves, the more you're going to be disappointed. I think that once you realize that you have what makes you excited and the more you do what makes you excited, the easier it'll come. The easier the audience who will actually genuinely support you will come. And the easier you'll find it to make the content. When you feel good about it, when you look forward to doing it, it'll make everything come much smoother. You'll feel more confident about presenting yourself to brands and sponsors. If that's something that you're interested in, you'll feel really good about what you make. And then from there, all the good will roll in.
Be authentic, be yourself, and the good will follow.
It is so important to not get too caught up in all the platform changes, algorithm changes with features, how to grow in that sense. I feel like the more you invest into the quality of your content, the more you'll be able to withstand all of the fickleness and the transitions that come with how social media is evolving. I think it's super easy to like lean into, oh, like the algorithm is against me. And like, it might be, but at the same time, like the more you focus on that, like the more you're going to be disheartened, and people can really tell when you're like unhappy with things. I think that especially if you're like someone who creates content that's focused on like the actual life that you live, like people can see that, and you just want to make sure that the focus is on doing good with what you're making. And social media is one of those things that's relatively new. And with the growth of AI and all these other technological advances that are coming down, you can't just be so wrapped up in those. Of course, like get to know them, know how they can work for you. But at the same time, focusing on that won't make you a better creator. What makes you a good creator is creating and making good content.
Have you used AI? What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? What do you caution about if you have used it?
I haven't used AI in the sense of it helping with content creation, but I'm not necessarily opposed to it. Of course, it's one of those things that learns by what we feed it. And I think that there's definitely an opportunity to like utilize it for the better, but especially with conversations around like AI art and like the theft that comes with it, it can also be like really dangerous territory to have all of your content be made with AI, but essentially you're not actually making anything. It's like one of those things you have to be really careful of when knowing when to utilize a tool and how, versus just like letting it literally do everything for you to the point where you don't actually have like any creative involvement or integrity with what you're making. Because I think it can be really easy to kind of just like feed something into this machine and have it siphon out all these things, but you don't do any tweaks to it, you don't change it around, you don't personalize it at all. And then like, lo and behold, we have a bunch of people who are making the same exact things because there's no sense of like humanity in it. You're just letting the machine do all the work. I haven't really seen it in the astrology community, but I know it can definitely happen if we let it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. All of Myah's social links will be in the show description below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment on this episode. And again, Myah, thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge and everything.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great experience talking to you.
Thank you so much for listening to Inside the Influence. This podcast is brought to you by Microspire. Microspire is the best platform to connect influencers with classes, job opportunities, and their community. Sign up today and follow us on social media at the links in the show notes.